Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 64 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is tenacity. Our quote of the day comes to us from Thomas Huxley. Patience and tenacity are worth more than twice their weight of cleverness. It is my pleasure to bring you today's episode. I think you will enjoy hearing from today's guest. He is a successful gentleman that is very focused on helping people take their businesses to the next level. In addition to that, he is a very successful podcast host himself with one of the top-rated shows. I would like to introduce Nicky Billou. Nicky, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Chris, it's an honor to be here, man.
I appreciate it. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to make it happen today?
Bring it, baby.
Awesome. So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up on themselves or their dreams. And I was curious if you have either a personal story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and you didn't quit.
Well, man, yeah, I got a couple. About 8 years ago, my then wife decided seemingly out of the blue she didn't want to be married to me anymore. And that was devastating to me because we were in business together. We have two children together. And I lost my mojo. My business tanked. I lost 95% of my clients. If not for the grace of God and the help of my family, I'd be out on the street. But I'll tell you, man, because I had the good fortune to have a lot of great people around me, I was able to come out of it and come out of it stronger than ever. My business right now is 5 times as big as what my ex and I's combined business was. And it's a beautiful thing to be alive and ready to roll.
That's a great story about perseverance. If you had to define yourself within one word, what word would that be?
Tenacity.
That's a great word, and obviously deals with a lot of what you went through. And most people probably in those shoes would have probably packed it and hung it up, but obviously you didn't. And the fact that your business is now 5 times the size it was when it was you and your ex, that says a lot about you as well as your tenacity and your perseverance.
Thank you. Thank you very kindly. I had a lot of great people around me. Without them, nothing good would have happened. Trust me.
I'm glad you touched on that because I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize in business and in all facets of life is they look at the success and whether that's a successful family or business or relationships or just professional success. And a lot of people just look at that end result and they don't realize that the most successful people typically have the best people in their corner. And I think that's an important thing that a lot of people miss in many times.
100% agree. You need great mentors, and you need to be part of a great peer group, and that's a big thing that I believe in. It's a big part of what we offer clients in our program at East Circle Academy is don't do it alone. Have great people around you, and we provide an environment that lets people take advantage of the fact that these great people are around them to, take what would take them a decade to do and do it in a day or two. And that's how they get rich quicker than they ever thought possible.
If you wouldn't mind touching on mentors just a bit, it's something we talk about in most of our shows. And one of the things that we found a lot of our guests, is not only have they been mentored and were they fortunate and grateful for that mentorship, but they also have mentored people throughout their lives. So if you wouldn't mind just touching on that briefly.
Well, I've had some tremendous mentors, both mentors that I've worked with one-on-one directly, as well as mentors that don't even know I exist, whose programs I've done, right? So I'm a big believer in mentorship. My first and greatest mentor was my father. He was an entrepreneur, and he said his greatest privilege was that he helped feed 51 families. And he was very proud of that fact. And I've always believed, because of my dad, that entrepreneurship is amazing. You as an entrepreneur, you're the most important person in our society. You help make every good thing in the world happen because you've got a dream and you're willing to go after it. So, as far as I'm concerned, mentorship's powerful. Mentorship's very, very important. I have mentors. I've had mentors. I will have mentors till the day I die. And I mentor people too. I mean, professionally, I mentor people inside our E-Circle Academy program, through our podcast. I do other programs for folks as well. I'm part of the men's organization. And inside that group, I mentor a lot of the men, especially in, how to live from their masculine power. And I mentor a lot of separated dads, because that's, as I said, a problem that I went through. I help them get their mojo back so that they can get through the pain of separation in weeks or months, rather than, years, decades, or even never. And with minimal emotional cost to themselves and their children, versus with maximal emotional and financial cost to themselves and their children, and frankly, even their wives. It's really, really important to mentor. It's really important to have mentors, in my opinion. It's part of the human condition. We human beings, we thrive on being social, on connecting with other people. Mentorship is as natural as breathing.
No, I'm so glad you touched on that, because you mentioned something that I think is really important. Is a lot of people look at mentors and they think the mentor component needs to be that one-on-one relationship. And I think in some ways, obviously it can, and I've personally had some very successful one-on-one mentors, but you mentioned the fact that you had mentors that didn't even know you existed. And I think that's the best thing in today's technological age of advancement, is there are programs both online or workshops and seminars and recorded programs, podcasts, other amazing things out there. So I would recommend that our listeners really take advantage of the technology and how you can really connect with different people in so many different ways today.
110%. I mean, we're launching an online version of what we do. It's called Discover Your Expertise. And use that expertise to become a seven-figure thought leader. And this program is going to give people the ability to learn the methodologies that we've learned that help people position themselves as the go-to recognized expert in their field, and as a result, have people want to work with you, line up to work with you, rather than being in this sea of sameness. And a lot of the people who end up taking this program won't even know who we are. But that's okay. They'll have benefited from the fact that we've created something that's going to allow them to move to the next level in their business.
That's great stuff. And you touched on before your podcast, and you have a top-rated podcast out there. And I have a question for you. Is what would you say has been the most challenging part of hosting and or launching your podcast?
Well, launching was rough because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. It took us a long time to figure that out. But I'll tell you what's been challenging right now is just continuing to find exceptionally great guests. We have a lot of good people we've lined up. We've been very fortunate with that, but that's always a challenge. And then you want to make sure, on our end, that the content's relevant and that it's helping people, because that's how, if it's helping people, they're going to continue to listen. And then that makes it possible for them to find out about what we can do for them outside of the podcast. And that helps us grow our business. So I have my eye constantly on great guests, great relevant content that solves a real problem that our listener has, the most important real problem that they have in their business. And that's really, really important for us to keep going.
Now, if you find any amazing guests with some great no-quit or stories of perseverance, please let me know, and I will likewise, when I bump into good guests I think could be good for you and relevant content as well.
Sure. Pleasure.
If you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, man. To get into business for myself way sooner than I did. I was in my mid-30s, and I would have done it. I would have told them to do it right away at 20.
It is a great piece of advice, and I think a lot of people don't really think about the component of what it takes to go into business. And I think, obviously, if we knew what we knew now when we were 20, we could give some very specific advice. But I think a lot of people would ultimately take that advice that you just mentioned as well.
100%. Absolutely.
One of the things we talk about on our show is personal development. And I was curious if there's a book you've read recently, or perhaps a book that you read that had a profound impact on your life that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
I read a lot of books. So I've read over 60 books so far this year. I have averaged over 70 for the last several years. Leaders are readers. If you're a thought leader, thinking means you gotta think and you've got to read in order to get the distillation of other people's great thoughts. So I'm really glad you asked this question. My favorite book of all time in terms of its impact on me is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It is a phenomenal book. It's a long book, but it is the book that, for me, every entrepreneur needs to read because it speaks about the majesty and the glory and the power of freedom and free enterprise and why it's the most moral and noble system created in the world. And it's a novel, but it's also a piece of philosophy. So I highly, highly recommend Atlas Shrugged. I'm reading a book right now about the great American World War II General George S. Patton. It's called Patton, A Genius for War by Carlo D'Este. And this is the story of how George Patton came to be who he was, which is probably the single greatest fighting general in American history. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but Patton is the only Allied general the Germans truly feared in World War II. If they heard they were going against Patton, it would freak them out because he was such a badass, audacious, victorious son of a...
I did not know that, but I have heard that book is remarkable, so we'll put both of those books in the show notes. And I love the fact that you mentioned that leaders are readers because that's something we talk about. And we try to ask almost every episode is, has our guest read something that had a profound impact in their lifetime or something recent? So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Hey, my pleasure. And listen, if you didn't know this about George Patton, you need to go watch the movie Patton. It's an old movie. It was made in 1970. The star of the movie is George C. Scott. But I got to tell you, it's a timeless movie. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. And you need to watch it. And Atlas Shrugged actually was formed into a 3-part movie as well. So
really,
I recommend that you get the books and the movies.
Have you always been a history buff?
Big time, brother. Big time.
No, I just always find it interesting because some people just are fascinated by history and some people aren't. And I just always am interested by what people like to do on their own free time. So I will definitely put those in the show notes. One of the things we do on each show is we utilize a daily quote. And I was curious if you have a favorite quote.
Well, my favorite quote of all time is by the great English philosopher Edmund Burke, who's the founder of modern British conservatism. And it says, the only condition necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to stand by and do nothing. And that quote always inspires me.
That is a pretty interesting quote, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. As we all know, life is incredibly challenging, and we all have our obstacles each and every day. I was curious, what motivates and drives you each and every single day?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you asked that question. That's a really, really, really great question. So here's my why. My family, my health. Like, my father is in a home right now, and I'm motivated to get him out of the home and living with us. We need to get a bigger house to make that possible. So that motivates me. I'm excited about working out with a friend of mine who's an Olympic gold medalist. I work out with him 3-4 days a week. I want to make that 6 days a week. That motivates me. There's a suit shop that makes these gorgeous custom suits. I want 5 of them. That motivates me. I want to have my confidence just go through the roof higher and higher all the time. That motivates me. I like traveling first class. That motivates me. I love caviar. Motivates me to be able to buy caviar more often, And I want to buy a house in the neighborhood I live in Toronto with a big driveway, a pool, and a hot tub. And I want an F-150 pickup truck. That motivates me. I want to be able to help my mom and my brothers financially more. That motivates me. There are these very special vacations I want to take. They motivate me. And every day I want to be a better man. That motivates me.
Well, it appears you have a lot of things that motivate you, and that touches something we talk about on our show as goals. And I think some of the most successful people have some of the most specific goals. So I appreciate you sharing what motivates you each and every day. You had touched on eCircle Academy, and I'd love if you could share a little bit with our audience what exactly that is.
So eCircle Academy is a program that we have that's a combination mastermind and educational program. And really, here's what we do. We help you take your income from where it happens to be, wherever it happens to be, to mid 6 to 7 figures a year within 18 to 36 months without you needing to spend money online. And the way that we do it is really simple. We help you learn what your genius and your expertise is and how you can position that in the marketplace so that people see you as the recognized expert or thought leader, and they're more apt to seek you out and want to do business with you. So it becomes simpler and easier for you to be able to do business with people. And that's what we do. It's powerful. We've got some courses coming up. We have them once a quarter. You can find out about them by going to ecircleacademy.com. And it's just one of these incredible programs that has helped a lot of people go and take their business from tragic to magic in a very short period of time.
I love that, tragic to magic. Where were you about 10 years ago when I needed you?
Well, there you go, brother. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten some good stuff in here, but hopefully you and the other people listening to this will be interested in checking out what eCircle Academy is all about and coming to do it, because it's a wonderful place with a lot of wonderful people, and you don't do it alone there. You do it with other people, and that's one of the other things that lets you accomplish what you need to accomplish. It takes it from a decade to a day.
Wow. Now, is there an online version as well, too?
That's the Discover Your Expertise program I was telling you about. We're in the process of getting that ready and together, so stay tuned.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us. So here's an interesting question for you. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Anybody, dead or alive? Wow, my grandfather. Never met him. I was named after him, and everything I hear about him is he was an amazing, wonderful man. So I want to get to meet my namesake.
That's great, and I think it would be really neat to meet somebody that you were named after, and obviously you were named after him probably for many reasons, so that would probably be a very interesting dinner for you.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Before we let you go, Nicky, I wanted to ask if you had any parting words for our audience.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my message. And I'll say this. You have a dream. You have a dream to make a difference in the world, to make a dent in the universe. And you also want to make money because you deserve it. And it can be tough. And it can get in the way. And to me, the most important thing that I can tell you is don't quit on your dream. Don't quit on yourself. Keep at it. Seek out the mentors and the help and support you need. Don't do it alone. But it's because you have the courage to have a dream that this world is a better place. This world is only better because of the courage and the vision of you as an entrepreneur. And I salute you for that. And it's my privilege and my honor to be here to give you that wisdom.
No, and I appreciate you being here with us. And last question, I promise it's the easiest one, is what's the best way for our listeners to connect or follow you? And then also if you could share just a tidbit on your actual podcast as well, because I'd love for our listeners to check that out also.
So the podcast is really simple. It's called The Business of Thought Leadership. It's available on iTunes or at thebusinessofthoughtleadership.com. So I recommend you check it out. It's free. There's a lot of iconic thought leaders there. They really share their wisdom on how they did it, how they have taken their business to at least the mid 6 to 7 figure and even 8 or 9 figure a year platform that many of them have. So highly recommend that you grab that podcast. You know, if people are interested in speaking to me, they can follow me on social media, on Twitter and LinkedIn and all that good stuff, Nicky Billou. But I'll tell you what I'm going to offer. If they're really interested, if they are interested in finding out how much their expertise is worth in the marketplace and how they can monetize it so they can become that mid-6 to 7-figure a year thought leader, so they can find their voice, if you will. Tell them to contact me at ecircleacademy.com/appointment. You can jump on a call, and we can help them get their business rocking and moving right away. It'd be an honor to do that. And if they're interested in attending our events, just go to ecircleacademy.com, and you can find out all about them over there.
That is awesome, and I appreciate you sharing that, and hopefully our listeners will take you up on that, not only checking out your podcast, which is free, but also checking out and connecting with you via the eCircle. So listen, Nicky, I want to thank you very, very much, not only for your time, but more importantly for your insight and sharing your story with us today.
Chris, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for giving me the platform to speak to you and your amazing audience.
To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, tenacity, Nicky was very honest and open with his story. When his wife told him that she no longer wanted to be married, Nicky decided to take action. While most people might have just hung their heads and given up, Nicky used this to motivate him, and he has since grown his business to 5 times what it used to be. Nicky's company helps individuals and businesses take their businesses from the mid-6 figures and grow them to over 7 figures. One thing Nicky was clear about was that you don't succeed alone. Although business and entrepreneurship can be very lonely at times, it's important to have mentors and to work well with others. In his parting words, Nicky shared something that clearly hits home. He mentioned the importance of having both the courage and vision to never give up on yourself or your dreams. So today's call to action is actually a question for our listeners. What are your dreams, and have you given up on them? No matter where you are today, keep going. Hold your vision and stay focused on yourself and your dreams. Don't allow temporary failures to stop you, and don't let anything stop you from going for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.